What's up, guys? So this video is going to be a little bit about the Ukraine war, talk a little bit about the state of the economy. I guess we'll wrap it up with some real estate and whatever else comes to mind. So if you're interested in those topics, watch the video. So I'm gonna drop this video first, and then I'm gonna be releasing some videos that I've compiled or whatever you want to say, about the Ukraine war, and just more so about America's involvement in it. And I don't know, man, things are getting a little bit crazy, and I fear that we're pushing a little bit too hard. You know, it's like it's blatant now, right? It's not even like we're not even on the sidelines. Of course, everyone in the world knows we want Russia to pull back, and we want Ukraine to be independent. And the videos I'm going to drop pretty much are talking about how we kind of blew up the Russian gas pipeline. I can't say we because technically we don't know, and so there'll be a clip about a boat appearing, which was kind of insane. It just shows you how much stuff America has. I guess every superpower has that they really don't show to the public until it's time. And it was a unmanned underwater like submarine drone. And once again, I can't say it's America's. It might be the Royal Navy's. It might be another actor. We don't know. But it's kind of crazy to see. Like it's always wonder how much stuff we really have out there that we're working on that we won't see until it's time. And hopefully it's never time. That's really the goal. But my whole fear on the whole thing is like another video I'll drop. Biden very clearly states that if Russia's pushing harder, technically if they use like a nuke or they get more aggressive, there won't be another Nord Stream pipeline for them. And the reporter asks, how can you be sure of that? And then he's just like, there won't be another gas pipeline, and I was just like, damn, dog, like, I feel like it's kind of like, we're poking, at Russia like it's like a little chihuahua or something, right? And, the reality is like they're a nuclear power, dog, and you just don't want to push, somebody, to that extreme. And let's say we do, and let's say things go the other way, and then it was Dr. Peterson that made this point, and it was like I was like, damn, I didn't really think about it this way, and it was more towards maybe this generation isn't the generation that's currently like in power, the one that's going to step up and take vengeance for being mocked and laughed at by the West and others. But the scary part is maybe there's a kid there right now, that feels that patriotism, for his nation. And that kid is the one, that rises and takes the reins 20 years from now. And I'll be 50 something, and everyone, average person watching my channel will be, 50 something, And that person's like, I'll never forget. And, they're the ones that unleash a fury on the world. These are things that we don't think about. These are like unforeseen, like consequences. And it's not so crazy to say that because that's what happened in World War II, guys, right? It's like any lesson in life, bro. You don't want to just walk around, just pissing people off, right? I feel like, there's always a way, to make things work. And, that doesn't make you weak, bro. Like compromising doesn't make you weak. And, I've seen this, all the time. Like, what's a man supposed to do? You never fold. You never whatever. It's like, nah, bro. Like the reality is, in any business deal, in any life deal, your relationships with your friends, your significant other, your boss, whoever it is, the goal as a level-headed person should always be compromise. Like very clearly, there's something you want as an individual. There's clearly something that another person wants. It could be countries. You could talk about land and resources to your personal life. Your partner wants you to do certain things, and you want your partner to do certain things. You want your boss maybe to get you a raise, or give you a little bit more flexible time at work, and your boss wants you to work harder. Your partner wants something else. Basically, it's always compromise. It's anytime you have something that's so one-sided, it never really ends well in any aspect of life, right? And I fear that, I don't want to head down that road and anything in my personal life, of course, right? And I'm sure you don't either, but also in stuff that we really can't control that our politicians control. And I get it. The argument to be made is like, well, America has to do something. We're looking weak. We're looking like, oh, if we don't, give Ukraine arms or we don't make a stance against Russia, then it's like, oh, America are cowards. And I never thought that to be the case, bro. I mean, if you look at, I know some people that are like badass martial artists, right? And like they'll be like, karate chop, knock somebody out real quick, right? But those dudes, they don't walk around, saying like I'm the biggest, I'm the baddest. They're really humble people. Just because you can, it doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't support Ukraine, but it's like there's a limit before we provoke ourselves into a point that we're involved in something that we probably could have avoided. And along the same token, I guess I'll throw this out there too. Like, it's just funny to me, kind of like how things work, right? Like, I've already said this before. When I think of like something like 9/11, I feel, the whole involvement. I don't want to get into the whole thing. I made a video. If you're interested, you can watch the whole thing. But basically, it was like, we want to bring a democratized Middle East. We don't want it to be crazy in any way, in facets that you look at it, like any lens you look at it. You want peace there. And I have a lot of friends, that are Middle Eastern, and they'll tell you the same thing. I mean, they all have their grievances, with things that are going on. Each country has its own little thing, but everybody in the world, dude, we all want peace. And I feel like right now, like with Iran, going through the revolution, it's like, yeah, America's staying out of it, but the media is not even talking about it. These freedom fighters, they're actually standing up and they're like, nah, bro, we're not backing down. It's like, if you're a news organization, you should at least talk something about it. It shouldn't be buried, behind, whatever the latest thing Trump's doing and whatever the outrage thing is. And in the bottom, here's this big news story where a country potentially could change for the better, right? And be actually, something that other countries around it that are struggling to find freedom and find a voice, you're not shining a light at that, and you're worried about other things. You're worried about Ukraine. You really don't care. So it shows like your true face. Like, do we really care about freedom and having peace? And it's like, it's beautiful. And I hope, Iran does go through, not a bloody revolution, bro, not about the violence or anything, but I hope it goes through the point where women can have rights, where it's a choice where if you want to wear a hijab or you don't, or you want to practice, a religion, in a strict way or this way, it should have, a human being should have an ability to be able to choose for themselves. And I think it's an absolute shame that we're not talking about it. We're not supporting it. And I know people on Instagram, small accounts that have friends that are, tied to it I'll share stuff, but who am I? Who are these smaller influencers? It's really down to the bigger media to really push it and help. And, the Ukraine stuff, I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I know in the coming months, it's going to get kind of crazy. And it's kind of crazier that, if you look at like the tactical stuff, how if that Nord Stream blew up, now Germany can't, go to Russia and say, okay, hey, we'll get to the table. Let's see if we could be the ones, if Germany could be the ones to help bring everyone to the table and come up with a compromise. It's like, no, we're going for the goddamn throat. And I'm just saying, like, I just don't want, a person that has, the ability to destroy millions of lives be pushed in a corner that they're forced to do that because they're crazy. And even if they back down, I'm always going to be fearful now, long term, what do people in that country think and do they want vengeance, right? These are things that, I think it's really, really important to think about. And unfortunately, we're just going steadfast. And I don't know if it's the right decision, but I do know that if we take a second to think and, actually have a conversation, it's always better than reacting right away. That's my two thoughts on it. And then for the economic standpoint, bro, I don't know, man. I'm always hearing these things like, oh, it's always priced in, and I get it. There's smart people that are saying, Fed's gonna pivot and whatever, and it is very hard to take an opposite stance against the norm. But throughout history, that's happened. We never thought the dot-com bubble was going to crash the way it did as fast as it did. We didn't think housing was going to crash the fast as it did when it did in '08. And these are just events that happened in the last 20 years, right? Give or take 22, 23 years. So I'm not going to say it's gloom and doom. I don't know. If I knew, I'd be a goddamn multi-billionaire because I'd make those bets and we'd be cashing out, right? You just have to see, facts that come out, stories that come out, and you got to make your own, judgment. And, what is the state of the economy? It's a very complex thing right now. And, every time's a little bit different. This time's very different, right? Like we have very low unemployment. We have rates, that are rising because inflation's high. And we don't know how it's going to shake out. But the thing about inflation is yeah, I do believe in a couple of years it'll probably be under 3-4% if we raise rates. Because think about like a number 100. All right, you started at the number 100 and inflation was 8%. Now something is $108. Now it's another 8% higher. It's 117, 118, whatever the math is, right? Those prices aren't going to fall, but the goal is from that 117 now, we don't want to go another 8% higher. We like to keep that at 3%. But then you have a whole different issue where, hey, well, it's still 117%. So, wages and stuff are going to have to catch up. Everything else is going to have to catch up. And the only way you can let things catch up is if you have actual price slow down. Most things are, sticky. And, an example is like wood. When manufacturers are building wood, it's not, on the accounting basis, it isn't like first in, first out. They build supply for a long time. So if they have a bunch of high prices, they have a bunch of low prices, you're going to get that mean. And until lumber falls dramatically, and then that mean will come down. So basically what I'm trying to say is everything takes time. And you could apply the same thing for lumber as you could for every other raw material, every other cost of goods thing. So with that being said, it's like, where do we see, real estate going? Where do we see everything going? It's like, I'll say this until I'm like blue in the face. Like, there's no such thing as you being able to time the bottom. If you can, it's probably most likely luck. And hey, good for you, bro. Like, if you were smart enough to figure out, oh, the bottom of the real estate market was 2010 to 2012, 13, 14 time, when things were blowing up and you held, and that was great, right? But the reality is like, you never know absolutely when the bottom is. So what do you do? Well, you got to have cash. Right, you got to have money. If you have no money, you're not even in the game, right? So you got to do what you got to do to get your income up. Second job, work on your skill, get that raise, get whatever, save that cash, and then you just have to look at things logically and really, to build real wealth. I believe, over the long term, it's always going to be, dollar cost average, right? Well, take real estate. If you bought a duplex, for a couple $100,000 in, 2012, and it's worth $500,000 now, good for you. If you bought another duplex in 2020 and you paid $400,000, that's going to average out 2, 4, 6. Half of that would be your average price is like $300,000, invested for that cost basis. So you just want to buy something when you think it makes sense for you. And, what type of like return are you happy with in stocks? What type of return are you happy with in real estate? For me, I think 5%, cash on cash is a very decent deal. 8% is a great deal, and 10% plus is an amazing deal. You hit it out of the park. Obviously, if you could have every deal be 10% or 20%, that'd be freaking fantastic, but that's just not realistic. So when you see things come up and you sit down and you look at it, you take in all the factors of, the economy and everything. Basically, all you got to ask yourself is like, yo, does this make sense? And if it makes sense and you could afford it and you could hold it, you should probably do the deal. You should probably buy the stock or whatever the asset is. Anyways, those are my, 2-3 cents on everything right now. If you found the video helpful, like it, share it, save it. and hit up my Discord and join. I'd love to have you guys on there. Thanks for watching.